think you can see the Harris camp is starting to panic with Harris coming out. I'm sure people saw her in the media yesterday talking about General John Kelly, who was former chief of staff for Donald Trump, calling Donald Trump a fascist. Well, I agree. I mean, I think our entire government is fascist. You hear a lot of people throwing around terms like, "Oh, they're socialist," "Oh, they're communist." Well, I tend to think that we're more fascist than anything. Um, and what we definitely are is we're not capitalist. And that's what I think we really need to focus on is that there's a big difference between fascism and capitalism. See, fascism is where large corporations tend to use the government and they can use the force of the government to create regulatory capture that enables them to take over markets or allows them to get unfair advantages over other competitors. And we've been really seeing that over the last century within our country. And that's one of the reasons why I get really frustrated when I hear people demonize capitalism, because it's not capitalism that's caused these problems. It's fascism. It's fascism with hints of socialism, but really, really fascism. And I just want to say that considering John Kelly is calling Donald Trump a fascist, I would say that it takes one to know one. See, this is a guy who worked his way up through the military, the Marine Corps, and has a very respectable career. Became a general, high-ranking general within the Marine Corps, and has used that to work his way into positions such as being the vice chair of the Spectrum Group, which is a defense contracting lobbying firm, while he was still working for the DHS. And that's pretty common. You'll see that with a lot of these high-ranking generals and officers. They'll find a way out of the military, and then they'll work their way into some type of board position or some advisory role at a defense contractor. And I mean that's pretty suspect. When you've got guys that are making these decisions and advising politicians on military affairs, foreign policy, and things like that. And there's definitely something to be gained from these defense contractors that they're representing to get these government contracts or to sell weapons, and so I'd say it takes a fascist to know one, because there we see defense contracting corporations using the government to get advantages or, to create conflict so that way they can sell more of their weapons, and hey, don't get me wrong, I'm a former Marine. I'm an Iraq veteran. I was over there for a year, and I used to be all about the interventionist foreign policy. I grew up, I would say I was aware of, current events, but I didn't really try to think very objectively as to what was the meaning behind them. Everything was very black and white. These people are good, these people are bad. We're the good guys. We're going to go over here and fight them. But it wasn't until I was in Iraq, actually, and I was reading this book called No True Glory by Bing West. And it's a great book, and it's mainly focuses on the Battle of Fallujah and some of the missteps our military made, primarily due to civilian political advisors having so much influence on our strategies that were being implemented there. Strategies that got Marines killed. And I'm reading this book while I'm in Iraq, and all I'm thinking is, this is not how it works, right? Because I'm in the Marine Corps, and surely I know how this works, and this can't be right. There's no way we have unelected officials making decisions that are getting other Marines killed. And also, just while we're talking about this, I want to be very clear. I'm a pogue. That's a personnel other than a grunt. I was an engineer mechanic. And, maybe to somebody that wasn't in the Marine Corps, that's maybe not important, or they might not even understand what that means. But to all my fellow Marines out there, I just want you all to know I would never try to, take anything away, because I have a lot of respect for the infantry. Um, I was on base most of my deployment at Al Assad, Camp Cupcake, but I did go outside the wire for a few weeks. We were building a fob. I was out there with the grunts. They were out there doing their patrols, kicking indoors, doing what they do. And for guys that have been over there and guys that have served, it's that's important. And I want to always make sure that I give that credit and respect to those guys that do that. Mm. But after my separation of service, I just kind of got into the whole Republican Democrat paradigm, and my father was a Republican, is a Republican, and I just kind of aligned. It's like, okay, well, I guess I'm a Republican too, and it wasn't until I started, doing some research and some reading for myself that I kind of realized that all these politicians that pay a lot of lip service to free market capitalism, it's just that. It's lip service. They don't really mean what they say. They don't really believe in capitalism. They believe in using that, as a selling point, as something that they can act like, like, oh, we're all about free market capitalism, but they're not. They're just using that, same thing with like patriots, and acting like they've really got this honorable aspect of themselves, because they're just trying to get elected. They're just trying to get votes, so they're telling people what they want to hear, and they're saying the things that they know is going to get them the votes that they want. But anyway, back to General Kelly. He's not only was he on the defense contracting lobbying firm, he also was on the board of DC Capital Partners, which ran a for-profit detention facility at the southern border and in Florida through their subsidiary Caliburn International, which is now known as Acuity International. But here was a guy that was in the Trump administration advocating for, the policies of separating the families from their children when they come across the borders. And I'm not even saying that that's necessarily wrong. Like, I mean, if you enter into the country illegally, then you've committed a crime. You're in the country illegally. You're not here. You didn't come through an official checkpoint. You didn't go through the procedures. You're doing things the wrong way. And maybe the people that are coming in don't know what the right way is, but just like anything else, ignorance of the law is not justification to violate or break the laws. So if people are going to come across and do things the wrong way, they're going to deal with the consequences of that. Our country's pretty lenient when it comes to illegal immigration or people crossing the borders illegally. There's many more countries all around the world that are significantly harsher on people that come across the border, illegally. But regardless, you got to recognize the conflict there, that this guy is tied in with a company that's, making a profit off of detaining these people coming across. You just need to recuse yourself of that situation. If you're going to be, in a administration, then maybe you need to either sell your interest or not be involved while you're active in the government. That still leaves the door open for corruption there, because, if you're still in there and you've got your friends at the business, that's still, it's creating that atmosphere. It's creating those relationships that can lead to corruption, and I think if people that really look into it, they see it, and it's all around, and it's not just General Kelly. There was General Mattis, who was another guy in the Trump administration. He was the director of General Dynamics from 2013 to 2017. Then he was Secretary of Defense under Trump. Uh, he was also tied into the Spirit of America, which is a non governmental organization, an NGO, which, that's one of the ways that our government likes to operate, trying to be under the radar, not be traced as to what they're doing. But Spirit of America is this NGO, and they funded the establishment of Army. They've done a lot of stuff, but one of the main things that they've done that I think is pretty applicable to now is they funded the establishment of Army FM, which is a Ukrainian Ministry of Defense radio station that provides news and entertainment to soldiers in Ukraine because, it's to offset the Russian propaganda. So, see, we go over there through the Spirit of America and create a radio station to make sure that the Ukraine soldiers hear American approved propaganda. And in 2022, that same organization, Spirit of America, they've been involved with providing, non-military assistance and other forms of aid to the Ukrainian soldiers. So, that's the way it works. Either we do it directly through the military, or you have all these backdoor non-government organizations, and you have these politicians, unelected bureaucrats that fund these groups, work within these groups, and then that gives our government the ability to deny, say, oh, well, we weren't doing that. That's this other organization. We weren't doing that directly. And our current Secretary of Defense, Lloyd Austin, he used to be on the board at Raytheon Technologies. Raytheon is another huge military contractor. It's just these connections between large corporations and our government are absolutely the problem. So I would say to General Kelly calling Donald Trump a fascist, it takes one to know one. And, I just want everybody to take those things into consideration when they might look at these comments coming from this guy about Donald Trump. And again, like I said, I don't think Trump is a savior. I hate to see any of the hypocrisy, like when Harris comes out and acts like she's really concerned about the people and this is really important to her. She's a politician just like the rest of them. She's just maybe not as, I don't know. I don't want to say polished because Trump's not very polished either, but she doesn't come off very bright or well-spoken to me. She seems like an opportunist, somebody that's worked her way through the system just like most politicians. And that's the trouble. And it's the same thing with these generals and high-ranking military officials. The good ones either decide to get out of the military or they get in trouble with the military. The military doesn't do well with people questioning their decisions. So as long as you're controlling the handful of people at the top, any officers that you have making their way up, they're not gonna fare very well. That's not gonna do well for them. Like, I don't know if you all remember, there was this lieutenant colonel about 3 years ago, Stuart Scheller, and it was right after that catastrophic withdrawal from Afghanistan, which 100% I'm completely supported getting out of Afghanistan, but the way that operation was carried out was just a catastrophe. And I would say that any officer in any type of leadership role should have questioned that. Now they say, well, he shouldn't have questioned it publicly. He should have kept it to himself. And there's this article from the U.S. Naval Institute. This guy actually says that his actions were dishonorable reflected misplaced courage, demonstrated a lack of commitment to his Marines, to the naval service, and to the nation and Constitution. Well, when we take our oath of enlistment, we vow to defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And maybe when you feel that the domestic enemies are more of a threat than foreign enemies, maybe you don't make the best decisions. Maybe you act irrationally. I don't know. Or maybe you just do the right thing. And perhaps doing what Lieutenant Colonel Scheller did was the right thing. I don't know. I thought it at the time. I thought he made a lot of really good points, especially for what was the point of the last 20 years? All the lives that were wasted, all the money, all the resources, everything, and really, that's that's the problem with war. All it is destruction. We destroy lives, resources, wealth of a nation. Look how much debt we're in due to all these wars that we've, carried out. It's not good. We're $35 trillion in debt. And I know a lot of people don't, I mean, you can't even wrap your mind around those numbers, but just the fact that the interest on the debt alone is now exceeding $1 trillion a year. I mean, that's almost 20% of the entire federal revenue. I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but it's something close to that. So that means we're going to be spending in excess of $1 trillion a year just on interest on the debt. And you talk about national security. I would say having an economic problem like that's got to be a threat to security right there. But they're not talking about Lieutenant Colonel Scheller. He's not important. They're talking about John Kelly, this guy that's profiting off of policies that he helps implement. So that's good. They don't teach you stuff like that. Like when I was in the a couple years when I was in the Marines, I was stationed at Marine Corps Air Station Fatima, which is in Okinawa, and that falls under it's the Camp Butler base. Basically, it's General Smedley Butler base, and that's kind of like all these different like little smaller installations on the island of Okinawa. But anyway, they taught us all about Smedley Butler. Like when I was in boot camp in Paris Island, they taught you all about, he's this most decorated general, and he did all these heroic acts, and you learn about him, and you learn about him fighting in World War I and the Boxer Rebellion in China. But what they don't tell you is after he got out of the Marines, I think he had like 34 years of service. After he got out of the Marines, he wrote this little pamphlet called War is a Racket, where he, described basically that he felt all of his military action and his entire career was, to work for fascist. He questioned a lot of the things that he did, and kind of felt that he had been manipulated into this, and was saying, hey, like this wasn't necessarily for the greater good of the United States. This was for the greater good of a select few wealthy industrialists, but they don't teach you about Smedley Butler and War is a Racket. They just teach you the stuff that they want you to know, the stuff that makes you want to, stick your chest out and be proud and be a Marine, and that is good. I mean, be proud of that, but also understand, what's really going on. But yeah, so that's all I wanted to say. I just wanted to address that because I when I hear that word getting thrown around, it always good, that's where the blame needs to be on the fascism. Let's start actually talking about what things are. So because the only solution to the problem that we're in is going to be capitalism. And the sooner we can eliminate fascism and all the other isms from our economy and get back to actual free market capitalism, that's the sooner we're going to be able to fix the problems. And this was my first show, and I'm just trying to, this is just getting something out there. I plan on touching on lots of different subjects, primarily like the economy, current events, things like that. I'd like to do some book reviews, give you all different context as to the types of things that I'm reading that influence my thoughts and allow me to think the way that I think. And, you can either agree, disagree, whatever. But that's what we need to get back to also is being able to have a dialogue and be able to freely exchange ideas and not just say, oh, well, this person thinks this, so they're a hateful individual, or this person wants that, so they're stupid. No, like I would say that most people are not stupid. I would just say a lot of people are ignorant of different facts. Just, I mean, I'm sure I'm ignorant of things that some of you listening are like, oh, well, he doesn't know about this and he doesn't know about this. Well, that might be, but I would like to know, and that's where we need to get. So I'm always looking for new information, and if I missed anything, go ahead and comment. If you like what I said, give me a like. If not, give me a thumbs down, whatever. But yeah, just thanks for listening and have a good day.